Tonight on the fifth chapter, 1 week after telling the world there's a 100% chance of a 2020 MLB season, Rob Manfred now says he's not confident. So which is it and who is to blame? National writers are at it again. Dennis and Brian tell you who's ranking Matt Stafford a top 10 quarterback this time and why. And with the NBA set to resume its season at the end of July, why are some big-name NBA players saying not so fast? Join the conversation by commenting live on YouTube and Facebook Live. This is the fifth chapter with Dennis Fithian and Brian Chapman.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the fifth chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the fifth chapter.
That's right, and welcome to the fifth chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian, and Dennis is back from Florida.
Yeah, it's good to be here, Chap, although these horseflies have invaded my house, not inside, luckily outside. We have these big horseflies, man. It's not like they're just a nuisance and like they fly at you, man. They fly on you and they bite you, so horseflies, man.
Yeah,
no fun.
I haven't seen a horsefly in, I'm trying to think, probably years, but I remember they were pretty big, they were kind of vicious, they were kind of hungry. Not a big fan of those, but I guess that's what you get in the summertime. You get those horseflies.
Horseflies and mosquitoes, byproduct of summer. You're right.
Yes, well, look, when you have summertime, you're going to have the positives. You're going to have the nice weather. You're going to have the sunny skies. You're going to have the higher temperatures, but you're going to have the vicious insects like the bees, like the mosquitoes, like the wasps, like the hornets, all those animals that we can't stand. Plus, once the spring comes, and we're still in the spring, you got the skunks coming around, farting everywhere. You run over it, it farts all over your car, and it's nasty. So, look, you're never going to be in a situation where you can't complain about anything, but I think most of us are satisfied with the majority of what's going on as we close in on summer. What are we, 5 days away?
Well, the 21st is Sunday, so that is the first day of summer. Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, and one reminder, Chap, we already see Keith, he's saying, is that Chapman breaking down the intro? That is you. That's you rhyming, and that's your intro. That's you on there. You're singing that.
It's not singing, it's rapping, but yes, VO is back.
Singing, rapping?
No singing for me. And if I was singing, I certainly would not be using auto-tune. That's for certain. No auto-tune for me.
Auto-tune. All right.
So, as far as today's show, we've got 5 fantastic chapters. Thanks to everyone who's watching on YouTube and Facebook Live. We'll also, of course, have the podcast available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. And for those of you wondering, why do we have the podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify? A lot of you guys are used to listening to us on the radio at nighttime. And usually by the time the podcast is loaded around midnight or 12:30, it's a great opportunity for those of you that are driving around or for those of you that are at work and like to listen to us to download it and listen while you're at work. And you don't have to worry about your boss creeping over your shoulder saying, "What are you watching?" You can just listen to us. But make sure that you subscribe. You can participate in each show by sending your feedback in on the side on either YouTube or Facebook Live. Let's take a look, though, at today's book. And you can see in the second chapter, you got players from the Texans and Cowboys testing positive for coronavirus. That includes Ezekiel Elliott. What does that mean for the sports world? In the third chapter, another NFL writer, of course, it's almost summer, another NFL writer is at it again, saying Matt Stafford is a top 10 quarterback, saying he's the 7th best. We'll share with you what he had to say, what his rationale was. In the fourth chapter, Kyrie, Irving, Dwight, Howard, and a couple of others are saying, you know what, maybe we shouldn't restart the NBA season. Perhaps we should be protesting instead. And in the fifth chapter, it's game time. But we will start off with the first chapter. And in the first chapter, Dennis, it's about baseball. We've got more updates. On Saturday, Tony Clark of the MLB Players Association said, quote, "It unfortunately appears that further dialogue with the league would be futile, and it's time to get back to work. Tell us when and where." Talking about, hey, Rob Manfred, stop screwing around. Just put us on the baseball field. We're not making any progress. Then Rob Manfred went on ESPN yesterday, and this is, let me go back to a week ago, because a week ago, Rob Manfred said there was a 100% chance of baseball returning, and that was viewed as a huge welcome sign for all baseball fans when there was so much uncertainty. But then he went on to ESPN just yesterday, spoke to Mike Greenberg, and here's what he said.
You told Carl Ravitch here on ESPN last week that you felt 100% certain that there will be a season this year. How do you feel today?
Well, I know the owners are 100% committed to getting baseball back on the field. Unfortunately, I can't tell you that I'm 100% certain that's going to happen. I had been hopeful that once we got to common ground on the idea that we were going to pay the players full prorated salary, that we would get some cooperation in terms of proceeding under the agreement that we negotiated with the MLBPA on March 26th. Unfortunately, over the weekend, while Tony Clark was declaring his desire to get back to work, the union's top lawyer was out telling reporters, players, and eventually getting back to owners that as soon as we issued a schedule, as they requested, they intended to file a grievance claiming they were entitled to an additional $1 billion. Obviously, that sort of bad faith tactic makes it extremely difficult to move forward in these circumstances.
What are your concerns for the optics of this circumstance playing out as publicly as they are during the time in this country where all the other things, the confluence of events involving the pandemic and protest in the streets and everything else, of this playing out as publicly as it is?
It's just a disaster for our game. Absolutely no question about it. It shouldn't be happening. And it's important that we find a way to get past it and get the game back on the field for the benefit of our fans.
Would you describe your feelings as confident that there will still be a season?
I'm not confident, Mike. I think there's real risk, and as long as there's no dialogue, that real risk is going to continue.
Not confident. Baseball insider Jeff Passan joining.
So there you go. You've got Rob Manfred saying he's not confident. He's backing way far away from his 100% statement. In addition, you had the Major League Baseball players. You had the president of the New York Yankees calling for talks to resume today. And so you see all these different developments happening. The Yankees president saying, let's resume. Rob Manfred saying, I'm not confident. The players saying, tell us when and where. What do you think about this latest round of developments, Dennis? And when it comes to who's to blame, are you blaming Manfred? Are you blaming the owners? You blaming the players? You're blaming, is it everybody?
Yeah, I'm going to take all the above there. Yeah, there was also the stories today the 6 of the 8 owners don't even want to play baseball at all because it would hurt them financially. It's amazing that we're in this position. They had such a golden opportunity to have the world as their stage here in a pandemic and help during a depression and civil unrest. They had such an opportunity, and they're doing everybody a disservice here. Rob Manfred, I thought he was a smart guy. He comes out on Wednesday and he's making a 100% guarantee. In sports, when I hear a guarantee, I think of Jim Harbaugh coming out and saying he's going to beat Ohio State, or way back in the day.
As a player.
Yeah, as a player. Or Joe Namath as a player doing it way back in the day as a big-time underdog for the Jets and coming out and winning. When those guys do guarantee things like T-Mac, when he was throwing up that 3-1 to the Pistons, felt good to go to the next round. Pistons came back and beat them. We sports fans have long memories on that. Lomas Brown guaranteed that the Lions were going to go into Philly and beat the Eagles. And what's his name? Denzel Valentine, before the tournament, went out there and guaranteed that the Spartans were going to get to the Final Four and they were going to be cutting down the nets. That didn't happen. And now, it's just on Wednesday, and now he's coming out. Now he's saying he's not definite. It all seems like this is a poker player bluffing. All seems like this is lawyer posturing. That's what he is. He's a lawyer. So everything that he's doing is very calculated. What it seems like, he's slow playing everybody. So the only thing that they will be able to do is have some 50-game sham type season, and then they'll just roll it out there, and everybody's going to have to be happy about it, because a little baseball is going to be better than no baseball. But man, they've already let this go past them. They just stood there like the house by the side of the road.
Yeah, it looks like that might be part of their plan. I want to throw one other thing out there in terms of reaction to what Rob Manfred said. It's coming from Tony Clark in this ESPN article. And after Rob Manfred made his statements, he said players are disgusted that after Rob Manfred unequivocally told players and fans that there would 100% be a 2020 season, he has decided to go back on his word and is now threatening to cancel the entire season. That's the way that he's framing it, and I think that's the way that it looks to me. I'm still 85% certain that we're going to have a Major League Baseball season, but I look at what has transpired from Tony Clark's comments talking about they're negotiating in bad faith to Rob Manfred saying they're negotiating in bad faith, and I have to put the majority of the blame, using my bony finger of blame, on Rob Manfred, because he's the commissioner of the sport. He's supposed to be not just interested in what the owners want, which is money. And you mentioned that there were, 6 or 8 different owners that said, let's not play because I guess they're only concerned about money. He should be also concerned about the betterment of the game. And ever since he took over as the commissioner of baseball, I've continued to question whether he even likes baseball. You look at what's happening right now. He's not doing whatever it takes to put them on the field right now. He's not getting these owners in a room and saying, just shut up and sign the deal. Let's play. We made all this money these last couple of years, these last 10 or 15 years. You're going to make a whole lot of money in 2021. Take a little bit of a loss this year, and you'll still be able to keep all your yachts. He's the commissioner. Look at the grand scheme of things, not just protecting the owners. He flip-flopped on 100% chance of baseball. Now he's saying it's not confident. There's no percentage there, but if you ask someone if they're not confident about something, that suggests a less than 50% confidence level. I don't think it's that low, but Rob Manfred is the commissioner. He doesn't seem like he likes baseball with what's going on here, with all the changes that he wants to make to the game. If there isn't a season, people are going to look at that and they're going to say, you're the leader, you're not getting it done. It's time for him as the commissioner to get these owners to cave, pay 100% prorated salaries, get them to a 60 to 70 game season. But I agree with you, Dennis. I think the play all along for the owners is, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pay them a third of their money. And they get to decide how much of a season they want to play. Whether they want to play 50, 60, 82 games. I found this tweet from Mike Axia, who writes for CBSSports.com, and I'll put it on the screen for you. And it shows that if they play 82% or 82 games at a sliding scale, which is the first offer, the players will be making about 33% of their salary. If they play 50 games at a prorated salary, it's about 33% of their salary. And if they play 76 games at 75%, they're making about a third of their salary. So what they're saying is, if you're a $6 million a year player, you can decide, do you want to play 50 games, 76 games, or 82 games? Either way, I'm going to pay you $2 million. That's not really all that different, and I think that they're just going to wait to milk that clock to the point where they can say, all right, go to spring training for 3 or 4 weeks, and then we got a 50-game season so you can get a third of your pay. We'll see if the players accept that.
Yeah, I think he is backing them into a corner, and I think then he's going to have to get the players to sign off where they can't come back and sue him for this grievance, and they don't go to court, and then they could get this 50-game sprint. The owners will have their security where it's just a third, but they don't feel like they're going to lose that much money. I think that's the best-case scenario, at least from the owner side. And it's, look, when it comes down to Manfred, I've appreciated him because he's been able to get it done on the field. If he doesn't produce a baseball season and they're out there, then he goes alongside Gary Batman and Bud Selig as failed commissioner. So it's all for nothing from him. It's all or nothing for him. I know last year he talked about they're just playing for a chunk of metal. Maybe he'll come out there and say that this year. 50 games and we're playing for a chunk of metal. He'll come out there. We do have some feedback already. A lot of people always commenting on who those jerseys are in the back that you're lining up there. Steve is saying it's the billionaires and millionaires arguing about a game with a crying face. I'm with the crying face emoji right now. DJ Major is saying these owners are cheap bastards.
Well, I also want to point out, and you talk about the cheap bastards. People talk about the millionaires versus the billionaires. Not everybody is even a millionaire. You think about some of these, especially all these sorry Tigers. You look at a Travis Demerit. You look at a guy like a Dawel Lugo. You look at perhaps the last 2 or 3 guys to fill out the Tigers bullpen, and they're going to be working on major league minimum salaries. Now, a major league minimum salary is over $400,000, so that's a heck of a lot more money than I'm making, but not everybody's a millionaire. Some of these players, if they saved every single dime and before taxes, wouldn't have $1 million by the end of next year, even if there was a full season. So they're wealthy, but they're not all extremely, extremely rich. And for these players that are not making that much money, it's a big deal to them. They're not all Mike Trout and Miggy.
I'll read a couple more. There's Lawrence, very frustrated as a baseball fan. We need it now. That's right. And Mark is wishing that we were on the radio, but keep the podcast and the YouTube going. I'm looking at this where it's a sad day. And you know what? I'm not a millionaire either, but I would bet everything that I have, which isn't much, that Chris Ilitch is one of those 6 to 8 owners who doesn't want to play this season at all, that he would be on that list. But you know what? I have to take a step back, and if I was a baseball owner and I was looking at the long play, if I was looking for 2-3 years and I was thinking about how much my organization, how much my franchise was going to be worth in 2 to 3 years, if they had a baseball season this year, if they were able to get a deal done for 2022, and then what that would mean for my franchise and how much it would go up. And then I would have to look at a model where if they didn't have a baseball season this year, and if they had some kind of lockout or labor strife in 2022, how much this franchise would be worth in 2025, it would be drastically different, big time different. And you lose a little bit on the front end here to make a hell of a lot. It's like the owners are trying to get all of this here. That's why, you put the 85% probability that they will play baseball. I agree. I just keep thinking that they backed it. They're backing the players into a corner now. They're just going to go with this 50-game sham season, and people are going to like it because something is better than nothing. The players will sign that grievance. They'll go out there. Then there'll probably be a lockout in 2022. I'm just it's too bad for them. They had such an opportunity here to go out there and get playing on the 4th of July with everything that's going on in the world. This is all of this stuff that's on top of us, and they could have been helped. They could have been a part of the solution and the healing. And
this
instead,
is on Manfred. He's the commissioner. If he wanted the season to start on July 4th, assuming that there is no coronavirus spike, and you can look and see what's going on in the country, and there is some of that in a lot of these places. If he wanted to do so, then he could have done so, but instead he's butting up with these owners and not getting the point across to them like you were making. Like, your franchise value could tank like a no-limit soldier, like a Piston, like a Red Wing, like a Tiger, like a Lion, like a Detroit sports team, if you don't just take a loss. Like, think about it right now. If they have a 50-game sham season, then 50 times 6.4 million or $640,000 is what, about $30 million that the owners would be losing. If they go an extra 10 games to make it 60, then we're talking about $36 million. I can't imagine you would own a baseball team and not be able to take a $36 million loss in 1 year if you're a billionaire. Odds are you made more than a $36 million profit last year. You might have made $80 or $100 million, and you would do the same thing the year after that and the year after that. So I keep on, this is what, the 3rd or 4th show in a row I've said this, you can't be penny smart and dollar dummy or pound foolish or whatever it is. You've got to look at the long run, and these owners made their billions, I would assume, by looking at the long run. Why can't they do it now? Doesn't
Yeah,
make sense.
maybe it's because what JG says, who's watching on YouTube, he says, theoretically speaking, if Rob Manfred was a double agent sent by someone to sabotage baseball, would he be acting any differently?
No.
Good theory.
No.
Maybe he's a double agent.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be a baseball fan. Let's turn the page now to the second chapter.
Yeah, well, this was over the weekend. We had COVID Cowboys and also the Texans. A small number of Cowboys and then a few Texans testing positive for COVID-19. What do you make of this? I know we have a couple different stories that we can put up there and read and talk about it as we're going along. But when you see this, Chapman, when you see that the two teams in the NFL, one of the Blue Bloods in the Cowboys, and somehow we find out that Zeke Elliott is one of the players, and then you have a small number of Cowboys and a few Texans. We do know that some of the Texans, like J.J. Watt, went to George Floyd's funeral that was in Houston last week. Maybe there were a couple more. I don't know if that had anything to. It would be interesting to know if that was the case, but we don't know. We only know Zeke Elliott. But what do you make of this story when you see NFL players testing positive?
Well, it's part of it is something that you kind of assume is going to happen. I mean, we know that multiple NBA players tested positive back in March, and that's what got the season postponed. First, it was Rudy Gobert. Then you found out it was Donovan Mitchell. Then you found out that Christian Wood of the Pistons tested positive. There were 4 members of the Nets, including Kevin Durant, who tested positive. So from that standpoint, it shouldn't be a surprise. We've got 115,000 or so people that are dead in the U.S. over the Rona, and you got, I think, 2 million people that have been infected. So 2 million out of 350 million, that's one out of every 175 people is going to have the coronavirus, at least as of right now. So it shouldn't be a surprise that they're getting infected. You mentioned that J.J. Watt went to one of the funerals. There's going to be lots of people there. Most, I would assume, are wearing masks, but you're going to be most likely not socially distancing. So it doesn't surprise me, but it's obviously not a good sign. You can also see, based on what they're reporting at Johns Hopkins and the public state data, that Texas, which is where these two NFL teams are located, is seeing a rise in coronavirus. The hospital beds are filling up. This is not just about tests going up, but hospitalizations are going up. So athletes are going to be a part of it. Now, these players are world-class athletes. Ezekiel Elliott loves to show off his world-class abs, so they're in good shape. And therefore, they're not likely to have severe symptoms, although apparently he had some symptoms, and they're not likely to die. I think that as long as everyone is getting tested several times per week, which is what the UFC is doing, which is what the NBA says that they're going to do, and what I think the NFL is going to do, then it'll be pretty easy to isolate these players pretty quickly so that they can be away from their teams for a week or two until they have no more symptoms and they test negatively. I'm not all that concerned about them getting sick or dying. You certainly don't want it to spread around the league. The one group of people I am concerned about are the older folks that are part of the team personnel. For instance, if you got a head coach who's over 60, you got an assistant coach who's over 60, you've got a trainer who's over 50. In the MMA, everybody in the corner and these athletes are under 40, certainly over 50. So when it happened in the UFC where 2 fighters and a couple of their quartermen got sick or tested positive, it wasn't that big a deal. But when you start talking about 65-year-old coaches getting sick from their players, that could be a real problem.
Yeah, and you can take as many precautions as you want. I mean, it's a football game where you're lining up within 6 feet of each other and you're right in their face and you're tackling them. I did see, or I guess I read it, where you have the half shield on the football face mask. They're talking about having a full plastic shield now inside the helmet as a precautionary measure.
For all players?
Yeah, for all players. It'd be interesting to see what that would look like for a quarterback. I just read that today. They didn't say that was a sure thing. That was maybe like one of the measures they were looking at. But you just think about if they get into the exhibition season or if they get into the regular season, and if this is a Sunday morning when they go through their test. Now, they said it was a small number of Cowboys and it was a few Texans, but it doesn't take a huge leap to think about, all right, you have the offensive lineman room where they're in meetings and they're through walkthroughs, And if you go down 4 or 5 offensive linemen all in the same position group the day of, I know they're going to have expanded rosters and taxi squads. It's normally 53. Maybe it'll be up to 60. Maybe it'll be up to 70. But could you see a scenario where an entire offensive line is wiped out for a team the day of because of a coronavirus positive test? I think. I mean, everything, is kind of like, you're sitting there is a possibility.
And think about how much they want to win. When we were first learning about concussions, you had players hiding it or saying, "Oh, I was just seeing stars." What if there's somebody that tests positive, and because they've got a big game in Week 15 against a division rival with playoff seeding on the line, they hide it, and then after the game, oh, test just came in, found out he was positive. Well, I guess we'll sit him out against the last place Lions next week. But at least we got that W.
Yeah, well, I don't think they're going to be able to do it. But if it's a team doctor and it's up to the player to self-report, there'd be something like that. But I'm guessing, in fact, I would say it's more than a guess that they would have an independent doctor in there that's going to be
I'd hope so.
Taking the temperature and administering the tests.
Well, they need to do more than just take temperatures. They have to actually administer the test because you're not going to, according to all the experts, you don't start getting symptoms until, a week or 10 days after you've got the coronavirus. And during that time, you can spread the coronavirus to other people. So if you wait until somebody has a fever to start testing them, then they could have been spreading it around for 10 days to all the other players on the team.
Yep, taking a look at some of the feedback here, both on YouTube and Facebook. We'll get to some of those baseball ones in the 5th chapter, the ones that we missed. Lawrence talking about football players may need to wear those face shields. Yeah, that was the story that I read, the face shield, and we're used to seeing those. The Megatron wore one, and sometimes they tint them. They look really cool, but if you could consider just the eye one, talking about taking it down and making it a full face shield, I don't know, like you just have the ones covering the eyes. You start, I guess hockey players do, but they're always fogging up, so I don't know.
I would think it would be difficult to move your head around because if you've got the shield that's coming down all the way out, I mean, if you're going to prevent the coronavirus from leaving your body and leaving your mouth and spreading to other players, it would have to go down below the bottom face bar, right? And if it goes down below the bottom of the face bar, if you turn your head to the left or turn it to the right, then you might have less movement. If you're a receiver going down the field and you have to turn around to look to see if Stafford hit you with an accurate pass or not, that the bottom of the shield might get in the way, especially when you're wearing those pads.
Yeah, I know. I was just talking with somebody today. They were talking about youth baseball was back in Michigan, and teams have been playing out there. They were talking about, well, their players are socially distanced, and nobody's using the same bats. I know they do have to use the same baseball, but afterwards they're just tipping their cap instead of shaking hands. And I'm like, well, who's wearing masks? He said the coaches wear masks, but you can't have the kids going out there wearing masks in the field. I mean, you do have to be able to breathe, and it's the same thing. You start thinking about a football player. You do see those clear mask that they wear. It's not just a half shield. They wear entire shields. But I remember I was Antonio Brown hated his particular helmet. I mean, these guys.
Well, yeah, he's got some other issues. So
he did, but I can't imagine that everybody's going to be able to put one of these full face masks on and be like, yeah, you know what, I'm good with this. I mean, there'll be some issues there.
Also wanted to bring this up. This is from Twitter, an AP writer. And he's reporting MLB letter obtained by the Associated Press says several players and staff have tested positive for COVID-19. So it's not just basketball, it's not just UFC, it's not just the NFL. Now you got Major League Baseball. And this might be another thing that complicates negotiations where you already have players that are vocal and are concerned about their health, concerned about getting the Rona. Now we know that some of them have it. How is that going to play in the negotiations between Rob Manfred and Tony Clark? It's there. They have to assume it's there. But I think that the real question is what's going to happen when it happens during the season. Back in March, it happened during the season and they shut things down. Now we have more knowledge about that, and we see the UFC just rolling along by taking players out. Are they going to have to shut down teams? and shut down leagues? I would hope not. Certainly if there's a second wave that changes things, but if it's just a player or two, how are they going to respond?
It comes down to, again, like if you imagine a half dozen players, the pitchers usually they're out in the bullpen, they're all hanging out, they're with one another. I mean, if you a half dozen the day of game, how many? If you have a 25-man roster, they're expanding it to a 30-man roster. But if a half dozen of your relief pitchers go down and all test positive on the day you're supposed to play, I don't know what you're going to do there. Greg, on the feedback, what's it called on YouTube? Just feedback, right? Live chat, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
There it is. Greg says, hey, Brian, Dennis, wasn't Zeke Elliott at the Dak party? I'm wondering if they tested the whole party. Dak party? Dak had a party?
I don't know. I mean, he's a rich player who's trying to get a heck of a lot richer by getting a contract extension with the Cowboys. I wouldn't be surprised if he's had a party, but I don't know what that I don't know anything about a Dak party.
I don't either. But, in other times, if it wasn't during a pandemic, that would be something I would want to go to. A Dak party. Sounds kind of fun.
Yep. All right, let's now turn the page to the third chapter. And look, here we go again. You got another national writer out there who thinks he knows everything about the Detroit Lions, knows everything about Matt Stafford, and he's more optimistic about how good Matt Stafford is. He came out and let me put the article up there so you can see. It's an article by some guy I never heard of, Sean Wagner Mago from CBSSports.com, and here it is. Ranking top 10 quarterbacks for 2020 NFL season. Rodgers barely misses cut. Stafford poised for career year. So you see that headline, you're like, wow, that's two surprising comments. Number one, Rodgers isn't even a top 10 quarterback, and Stafford is in the top 10. So if you're a Detroit sports fan, you're going to read this article because you want to see, well, how high does he have him? He's got to be behind Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, but is he number 3? Let's check it out. So as we scroll down.
Number 3.
Hey, you never know.
What a tease.
Yeah. Number 10, Ben Roethlisberger, coming off an injury. He's old, but he says that 38-year-old Ben Roethlisberger is better than Aaron Rodgers. What about number 9? Stafford, where is number 9?
Yes, he does.
That's Tom Brady, your boy, at number 9. What about number 8? Carson Wentz coming in at number 8. Where's Matt Stafford? Oh, there he is, the 7th best quarterback in the NFL. It talks about how he was playing so well last year, on pace for almost 5,000 yards, 38 touchdowns, 10 picks. And he says at the time of his injury, Stafford ranked 2nd in touchdown passes, 4th in yards per attempt, 5th in passer rating, 3rd and 5th in these other weird categories, and 7th in total QBR. He talks about how the Darrell Bevell system is going to help him, and how last year at the time he got hurt, he was so high on Darrell Bevell's system and how he was averaging 8.6 yards per attempt. And then at the end of his analysis, he says Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones are still around. TJ Hawkinson entering his 2nd year. Assuming he can stay healthy this time around, Stafford has a legitimate chance to put together the best season of his career. He's never been better equipped to do so. That's why he's ranked 7th on a list that doesn't include Aaron Rodgers. I think he's going to be the best quarterback in the NFC North. That's from, what the heck is his name again? Magoo? Sean Wagner Magoo.
I was going to say a guy that's trying out to write for the Pride of the Lions website there. There's his submission. He gets the job. Look, the NFL analytic people love, it used to be yards per attempt. Now it's air yards. They love that stat. And Stafford is, when you look at his half season that he had, that with Darrell Bevell, he had a hell of a lot of air yards there. And he did, if you extrapolate it out, he had a pretty good half season. The only problem with that is if you look at Ryan Tannehill, who actually won some playoff games. I know he just handed the ball off, but if you look from the 8-game and the second half of the season for the Titans, Tannehill blows it away when you look at his air yards.
Lions fans aren't going to like that, Dennis.
Well, I would like. Are you saying that like if I've ranked the quarterbacks this off season, and I looked at what kind of year they had last year, and what kind of team a quarterback has around them this year. I also think you do have to factor in, like, Carson Wentz is on that list. Are you putting Carson Wentz at number 8 on your list, considering the guy hasn't finished the season over the last couple of years? I mean, you got to factor that in a little bit. I like Carson Wentz, but I you know what? I think everybody would look at the top 5, and however you wanted to rank them, we could all agree. Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson for sure would be in my top 3. Deshaun Watson at 4. And then I would put Aaron Rodgers at number 5.
Well, on this list, just to mention it, they have Mahomes 1, Jackson 2, Wilson 3, Breeze 4, Prescott 5, and Watson at number 6. Those are the only 6 better than Stafford, according to this list.
Yeah, well, I would put Watson at 4 myself, and I would put Drew Brees behind Aaron Rodgers, and then I'd have, Tom Brady in there at 8. I look at it like this: if I'm going into a season here, if I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, would I want Matt Stafford as my quarterback on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for 1 year, or would I want Tom Brady? I would still take Tom Brady, even at 43 years old. Now, if you're talking about you get to keep them for their entire career or whatever else, or if you're talking about, fantasy stats, those things are different. I'm talking about trying to win football games, and what player am I going to take? I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers before I take Matt Stafford too. And you know what? I have to, based on what I have seen over the last couple of years, and I always rank them right next to each other. I always have Matt Ryan, and I always have Kirk Cousins and Matt Stafford right next to each other, taking a look at them. Mm-hmm. But I have to put Kirk Cousins in front of Matt Stafford based on the kind of year he has and the team he has around him. And, yeah, you know what? He made the big play in a playoff game and won it. And you know what? It's not just about, like, you have to consider the team around him. But Stafford has a team around him where you like the additions here. But you know what? I also consider that he's coming off consecutive years with a broken back.
Yes.
So I put Stafford at 10. I put him at 10. So that's not that far off. He's top 10. Could he play? If you were talking about, if the question was, do I think that could I see Matt Stafford if everything fell right for the Lions, like the defense played way better, like a top 10 defense. They had a top half running game. Do I think that Matt Stafford could even play as a top 5 quarterback? I do think that, but I think all things, if you're factoring him in there, putting him at 7, just a little bit high.
Yeah, it's too high. And we have to deal with this every single year, where no matter what Stafford did the previous year, and no matter how old he is, whether he was a young buck at 25 or now at 32, you got somebody coming along and saying, hey, he's got the tools, and look at this stat, and look at this stat. And people, around here, a lot of folks call Matt Stafford Stat Padford because he pads the stats. Look, he's going into, year 12 now, and he'll pad some stats like he did last year in some losses. And I'm not going to put all the wins and losses on him because the defense was atrocious. But I don't look at him as being a top 7 quarterback going into the 2020 season. I get all of his points because I think he was playing better in the first 8 games under Darrell Bevell. The offense looked pretty good. The defense was to blame. All that talk about him being an MVP candidate I thought was nonsense. But you look at Kenny Golladay, he had a career year, backed into the Pro Bowl. You saw Marvin Jones, his numbers were good until the backup quarterback started playing. They drafted DeAndre Swift, that'll take some of the load off of him. Kerryon Johnson should be healthy at least for a couple of games, which is all you can really expect from him. The weapons should be fine. I don't agree when he says this is the best set of weapons he's ever had, because he had Calvin Johnson, Nate Burleson, Titus Young before he went nuts, Brandon Pettigrew, and Reggie Bush or whoever it was back in 2011. That was a better supporting cast. But this
Strike Bell too.
Yeah. This is a pretty solid supporting cast. One exception though could be the offensive line, where they lose Rick Wagner and they bring in an overpaid Philadelphia Eagle who wasn't all that great last year, and then they're going to be starting a rookie, and we can be excited about the Deep South Buckeye or the guy from Kentucky that they brought in, but they're going to be rookies playing on the interior of the offensive line who don't have OTAs or mini camps to learn the system. It's just going to be, all right, here we go, game 1, you're going up against perhaps an all-pro defensive tackle. I don't think that he's a top 7 quarterback. I put him just outside the top 10, in addition to the quarterbacks that Magoo has ranked over Stafford. I'll give you Brady. I'll give you certainly Rodgers. I'll give you Cousins. I'll give you Tannehill, and maybe Garoppolo or Wentz.
Ooh, David Garoppolo. Well, as DJ points out, Chapman has been hating on Stafford his entire career. That is a valid point. You have been hating on.
It's not hating. It's calling a spade a spade. Matthew Stafford is not a top 7 quarter. He can be a top 7 quarterback for a week at a time or a month at a time or a half season, and you might be able to argue maybe 1 or 2 years he's been a top 7 quarterback, but especially coming off of another broken back year, I'm not trusting broke back Stafford to be a top 7 quarterback.
Yeah, I think 7, like I've said, it is too high. I have him at 10. I think if everything again fell just right for him, I think he could be a top 5 QB. He has that kind of talent. But there's 2 things that you have to look if you've watched his entire career. He has had offensive coordinators before that people have been like, oh, the Lombardi system is just perfect for him. Oh, look at Linehan and what he has doing. The Schwartz just let him fly. And, with the number 1 pick, and they just tried to put talent all around. And you know what? Those guys all got fired because even when, his best season where he threw for 5,000 yards, it was this crazy season where he was coming back from 20 points down 4 times. He had to come back 18 points or more. Mm-hmm. That was never going to be sustainable. And then the next year, his picks went way up. The point here is that we've had him in short windows with different offensive coordinators where you're like, oh, remember when Jim Bob Cooter came in after they started 1-7? Everybody's like, oh, the short passing game, this is perfect for Matt Stafford. And it gets him in rhythm. And then, what happened? It would look terrible. Not the following year, but the following year after that. And that was Stafford's boy. He went to bat for him and wanted him as this offensive coordinator. Now everybody's all on this, the Darryl. That's the one thing I almost see, like the defense stunk last year, but I am not on the Darryl Bevel bandwagon. It's great, the air yards and the yards per attempt and all of the numbers, the DVOAs and everything that he was doing. And I like the draft that they put around him. But the thing, Darryl Bevel, 2 games, he had 2 of the most reckless play calls that you can have as an offensive coordinator. One was after he called the timeout in the Arizona game. He ran this 4 vertical with nobody in to protect him. That's never going to work. That was such a ill-conceived play call, and it cost him that game. And the other one, of course, is the one that everybody knows about that should have cost him his job when they ran that ridiculous last play against Oakland, where they threw to the 3rd-string tight end, where they had 2 of the both of their wide receivers had 2 of the greatest performances in an NFL game that I've ever seen, and they took them off the field and ran some play action to the 3rd-string tight end. Yeah. I really like that call by Darryl Bevel.
Well, and when Darryl Bevel got fired a couple of years ago from Seattle, there were some questions about his play calling as well.
Like at the end of the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, there you go. Why not hand it off to Marshawn Lynch? Certainly, when you look at the headline from that article, 2 names are mentioned. One is Matt Stafford. The other is Aaron Rodgers. And he basically has him falling off of a cliff. You and I both have him rated ahead of Matt Stafford. Look, Rodgers hasn't had the best numbers the last couple of years, but he's still not throwing picks. He's still able to put together enough offense despite having this lackluster group of wide receivers to win lots of football games. I'd still much rather have him than Stafford, and I would rather have Aaron Rodgers over any quarterback in the NFL outside of Mahomes and Russell Wilson. I'd rather have him over Lamar Jackson. I'd rather have him over Deshaun Watson.
Wow, man, let's get you a cheese hat. I didn't know you liked him that much. Let's get to some of these live chats here. We have a lot of them coming in. The offensive line is the biggest question mark. This is according to Greg. He says we drafted a running back, but we have to have a line to open the holes. If Stafford gets hit one more time in the back, that could be it. Career over.
Well, and I don't know about his career is going to be over, but his season could be over, and he has broken his back twice in a row. Who's going to trust even an all-pro offensive line to protect their quarterback from never getting hit?
Well, one good thing I could say that in the beginning of last year against the Cardinals, Chandler Jones hit him right in the back and just put a 2x4 into him. And the next game, Bosa tracked him down and planted him like a tulip right in the back too. So I knew after he took those 2 hits that broken back 1 was okay. But now we have to come back from broken back 2. So I'm right with you on that. Keith wants to get a better backup And then Daniels, he says, I would rather have Kaepernick.
There you go. Oh, speaking of Colin Kaepernick, when people talk about Kaepernick, they often bring up race. And, of course, he's a black quarterback and a white quarterback because he's got biracial parents. But we tend in this country to look at the one-drop rule and say that he's black. When looking at this Magoo guy's list, one other thing that I noticed is that he
You
has
think he should have put Kaepernick in the top 10?
No, I'm not going to say he should put Kaepernick in the top 10. But
All right.
he did say that Matt Stafford is the second best white quarterback in the NFL. Because you look at who he has at number 1, and Patrick Mahomes is black. Lamar Jackson, 2, black. Russell Wilson, 3, black. Drew Brees, white, is number 4. Then number 5, Dak Prescott. I believe he's also half and half, but he's black. And then number 6, Deshaun Watson, black. So not only does he say that Matt Stafford is the 7th best overall quarterback in the NFL, but he has him as the 2nd best white quarterback in the NFL. Fake news.
Yeah, I don't really need to, start breaking him down to he's the, 3rd or 4th best white quarterback, or, this guy's got a white mom.
I mean, there was a time not too long ago when folks said that blacks couldn't play the quarterback position, and now you got this no-name Magoo guy saying, hey, 5 of the 6 top quarterbacks in the NFL are black.
Hell, it wasn't that long ago. I can remember when that really was the case. They can't play, blacks can't play the position. But then it was just a few years ago, like when Cam Newton was drafted, it was like, you can't take a guy that runs a spread offense and have him run around or he's going to get hurt. You need it was still like, let's go as recently as Newton coming in, there seemed to be the idea that you needed that having a pocket passer was better than having a mobile quarterback that wanted to run. I think we can all agree that you want a guy that can do both. And,
Yes.
Having a guy that run around a little bit like Mahomes, or having a guy that can run around like Deshaun Watson and shed a linebacker that's coming at him, push him down to the ground and roll out and make a play.
Throw it off balance across the opposite side of the field on the money. Yeah.
Pretty handy. Pretty
Yes.
handy.
Absolutely.
Pretty handy. You want some more of this feedback?
Yeah, let's get to one more before we get to the 4th chapter.
All right, let's go to Facebook Live on the feedback. It says, this one's from L.E. Aaron Rodgers will put up big numbers to show the newly drafted quarterback he isn't done yet. Guarantee that guy's a competitor. Ooh, we got another guarantee. Well, Lawrence, hopefully your guarantee is better than Rob Manfred.
I was about to say, I trust
okay.
him more than Rob Manfred. Now let's turn the page to the 4th chapter.
Oh, and that's for me. And we go to the NBA here, and that's where Kyrie Irving, and then who is out for the year. He's out for the playoffs in Orlando, and yet he told The Athletic he doesn't support going to Orlando. He said, quote, I'm not with the systemic racism. And then Dwight Howard, who plays for the Lakers, he told CNN that basketball isn't needed at the moment, and we have do we have the video, or do we have the pages for these?
Yeah, we do have the video of Dwight Howard speaking to Don Lemon. Here is what he said.
I want to win a championship so bad. Going to LA for me has been the best thing in my life. And I'm very appreciative of just being on that team, playing with LeBron, playing with AD, just representing the Lakers again. That has meant the world to me. I just personally have seen so much pain from our people. And, I just feel like our people, we need attention. I really feel like our world is hurting right now. There's so much stuff going on in our world, man. And I just feel like, it's just, we don't need to get distracted by anything. I would definitely want to win a championship, but I don't want anything to distract us from really what's going on in our world. Is hurting. Mm-hmm. It's hurting me. It's hurting my family. It's hurting all our families, and everybody is feeling it right now. I just think that we need to focus on this, what's going on.
Well, because you say
So there you have it. Don Lemon speaking to Dwight Howard on CNN just last night.
Yeah, well, with Dwight Howard, talking about people need our attention, and Kyrie Irving talking about the racism, and let's not go down to Orlando here. I look at it like this. I thought the players, if they expressed concerns about the pandemic and they didn't want to play because of the pandemic, I would have let them stay home and concentrate. Same thing in baseball. Go to next season. If the health concerns are too much for you, go to next season. Now, you're not going to get paid in baseball's case. In basketball, they already did get paid. So if they would want to stay home, they could. And it would be the same thing here if they really thought as an individual player that they needed to be in their hometown, if they needed to go out, protest, or their family, their community needed their attention, then I would also, like in Dwight Howard's case, I mean, he already has his money and he's going to skip the playoffs. I would say, that's your choice. But at some point, if there are too many players that go the route of skipping the postseason, and whether it's for the pandemic or it's because of civil unrest, and you don't have a season, they need to realize that the NBA then can force their clause where they can, get their money. What's it called? Force majeure. You have to look at, the fine lines there. But what they can do then is blow up for the rest of the season, not get that playoff money, but they can they can try to recoup it through insurance. But if they do that, those players have to know that their future earnings are going to be affected by how much. I don't know. It's certainly going to affect the salary cap. So a lot of different things at play.
Yeah, there are a lot of things at play, and we're obviously living in uncertain times. But Dwight Howard and Kyrie Irving, particularly Kyrie Irving, I mean, they have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. The season is not going to resume until July 31st. They can make a difference until then, or at least until they go into the bubble. Once the season resumes, they'll have off days. They're not going to be at practice all day long or at the gym all day long, so they can go on social media and host Instagram lives and things like that when they need to do so. You got millions of people that are out of work right now, and some of them are out of work because their jobs shut down due to COVID-19. Some have shut down permanently. Some are out of work because they're concerned about getting COVID-19, which is kind of what you were talking about, where you said, if you're concerned about getting sick, I get that. You can stay home. And I understand that too. But some people are also perhaps taking a day off or 2 days off to go downtown, wherever downtown is for you, to go protest. I think that's understandable. You take your vacation day and do that. But you can't just not show up for months at a time to protest. If the employer says you have to go to work, then you have to go to work. So I don't think this is the same thing. You look at Colin Kaepernick. 4 years ago, what did he do? He protested, and he was going to work trying to help the San Francisco 49ers win. And obviously they weren't winning a lot because they had the worst defense in the NFL, which people don't like to point out. But he wasn't saying, I'm going to take off time to protest. He was doing both. He would have done the same thing the last 3 years if he wasn't blackballed. And if a team signs him this year, he's going to play, but he's also going to protest and stand up for what he believes in. Talking about let's just not play so that we can protest, not a good idea. The one thing I will do when it comes to Dwight Howard is agree with one point that he made, and that is that it's a distraction. Because when we look at sports as fans, it is a distraction. We want to come home from work, we want to get away from our kids and our coworkers and things like that and just watch the game. And when you do that, you're not focusing on whatever the issues of the day might be. Because we've got coronavirus that has shut down sports and everything else, there aren't as many distractions. We have to focus on things, and we're actually seeing things get done. So when Dwight Howard says that he doesn't want to be a distraction so that we can get things done, I understand that. I think that makes sense. But I also believe that that is not a valid reason to not show up for work.
Yeah, everybody's different. I think your best point here is, like, if you have a family member die, you get to take a few days off and grieve, and you get grievance. However many different companies have different ways, but you get a few days off there. And then you might think that, yeah, I could really use 2 weeks off. I could use 2 months off. But, companies don't give you that long off. I mean, they give you a certain number of days. And then even though you don't like it, you got to go back because you're working there. And that's kind of the same thing here. It's like, we understand this is a historic moment in time, and this is a huge deal. And yet, like to your point here, they're not starting until August, and there's time that you can get some things done now. And then there's also plenty of different ways that you could use this platform. We could sit here for an hour and probably come up with 100 different things that guys could do. Dwight Howard, he's doing interviews there on CNN. He could ride along in, some police cars. Kyrie Irving, he could go to Brooklyn and, go to their police department, and he could hold a symposium. All kinds of different things that these guys, could be doing. They have such, and with the NBA, with everybody watching, and we don't know how many reporters are going to be down there in Orlando, how they could set that up. They have the cameras and the time after the game, before the game, when they're going to be in that bubble. They could do a lot of different things. And the one thing, if you think about Kaepernick, if Colin Kaepernick tomorrow just said, I'm going to go out to the beach and have a protest and put my ID down, I don't know, maybe there'd be a few cameras out there. Maybe some people would talk about it, but that he did it before a game and did it during the that's what caught everybody's attention. If they canceled the NBA because of civil unrest and players want to stay at home and stay in their communities, what kind of attention are they really going to get? Are they going to get more attention after a basketball game, before a basketball game, during the week in Orlando when there's playoffs going on? Or if they canceled the season and went home and said, hey, let's talk about this. I think it would be, during basketball.
Yeah, and by the way, when it comes to Kyrie Irving, how does he have any credibility when it comes to anything besides playing basketball? The dude, and even when it comes to basketball, he's got some issues. He's selfish. He goes to 4 straight championship or 4 straight NBA finals and says, I want out of Cleveland. And then he goes to Boston. He continues to get hurt. And while he's there, the team gets on the precipice of getting to the NBA Finals without him. And he comes back and they get worse. Then he decides to go to Brooklyn and forms a super team or tries to form one with a guy who tore his ACL. He doesn't make smart decisions. And this is a guy who says the earth is flat. And now he's some leading voice for the players. Why is Kyrie Irving the player rep for the Brooklyn Nets? Why is Kyrie Irving the VP for the Union? Only thing I can think of is that he went to Duke, which is a really nerdy school. You have to be smart to get in there, even if you're a basketball player. But he was there for 1 year. As far as I know, he didn't graduate. He's probably taking basketball classes like how to not burn toast. Like, how in the world is Kyrie Irving looked at so highly among these NBA players? There's got to be somebody else out there.
Yeah, well, he played half the season at Duke too before he went to the NBA. But you know what?
Yeah.
If you take the the world is flat, and how he orchestrated getting out of Cleveland after he won a championship, and he was having a minute there for Boston. He was looking pretty good till he got hurt,
and then they got better.
I you know what? I've listened to him in a couple different podcasts. Well, one that I can think of, he did one with Bill Simmons where, he sounded very thoughtful. And his uncle, he's got the best handle that I've ever seen. He's, the ultimate scorer. He is a pretty thoughtful guy. But yeah, all of that other stuff. He's got a lot of different things going on. And his Uncle Drew, he's pretty funny. So,
yes.
I think he's, he is about his brand a lot, but he is a pretty thoughtful guy. But he says a lot of things and does a lot of things where I can see that how people would look at the other side and roll their eyes when he talks.
Yeah, I roll my eyes just about every time that he talks.
Well, that's you. All right, you ready? Should we get to some of the feedback here?
Yeah.
LeBron and the Lakers getting to spend 2 months at a hotel with Giannis is Adam Silver's way to send a frozen envelope to the Lakers. How about that?
I want a frozen envelope for the Pistons to get LaMelo.
It could happen. I'll tell you this. I read I think The Athletic got a copy of some of the procedures that have to take place down in Orlando. And one of them is you have to wear a buzzer. And let's say you and I are both in the bubble. We're on opposite teams. You're wearing a buzzer. I'm wearing a buzzer. And if I get within 6 feet of you, inside the 6 feet radius, the buzzer goes off as a precaution. They have these tracers on the different guys. So
That seems like overkill, because guess what? If those two players are out on the court later that night, they're going to be within 6 feet of each other. And if they've been testing negative all throughout the week, all throughout the month or two that they're there, why do they need a buzzer?
I don't know, but could you imagine if I went into the grocery store and you had to wear a buzzer, and if any time you got within 6 feet of somebody, the buzzer would go off? Buzzer would be going off the whole time.
Yeah, and you think there's fights in the grocery stores, and now people get buzzed. Yeah, that's a stupid idea. Seems like an idea that was created by Kyrie Irving.
No, he doesn't think they should be in the bubble at all, so he wouldn't have come up with that one.
Yeah. By the way, he's out for the season, so he can do whatever the heck he wants to do. He's not coming back to try to get the Brooklyn Nets into the NBA Finals. He's done, but he wants everybody else to not come back. It doesn't make any sense. And on top of that, it's an 8-game regular season to finish out the year. So we're talking about 2 to 3 weeks. And then for half of these teams, they're going to be out in the first round. So we're talking about a month and a half away from protesting in terms of the game time, a couple of weeks to get warmed up. So 2 months away from protesting for half of these teams? That's not too much to ask, especially because you can still do things in the bubble to further the cause. It doesn't make sense to me, outside of Dwight Howard talking about distractions.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing Kyrie said, the other part of his quote, and I'm just going off the top of my head, where it didn't pass the smell test. I think he was talking about the owners as well, how they haven't come out and said anything about what they're going to do or what their plan is to get involved with the movement, to get involved with civil unrest, to make a difference. And I think the players, before they get into the bubble, they would like to see a plan. And Adam Silver came out and said, look, we're listening to our players. We know that, unlike Rob Manfred right now, people look at him as a fine commissioner and one that works with his players. I think this is a plea to let's get that ball rolling before we all just commit and go into the bubble and think basketball. Let's also have what's going on in our communities, top of mind as well. I think that was part of it. But that's me just reading what Kyrie Irving, reading into what Kyrie Irving had to say.
Yeah, I give Adam Silver the benefit of the doubt. I think that most people would say that Adam Silver is the best commissioner in all the 4 major sports, ahead of certainly Bettman and Manfred, who are just going at it for the bottom, and then of course above Roger Goodell as well. Let's now turn the page to the 5th chapter, and it's now game time.
Ooh!
Dennis has some trivia for me.
Yeah, you ever watch some of those TV shows, Entertainment Tonight? They'll have a side-by-side. They'll say, who wore it best?
I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen that.
It would be J-Lo. She'd have like a silver dress on, and then it'd be, another actress, she would have the same, type of outfit. They would say, who wore it best? You familiar with that?
Bigger booty.
Well, that's maybe what your opinion would be, but, you just say who it looks better on. This is similar, except, Jeff, I'm saying who wore it best. I'm going to the Pistons, Red Wings, Tigers, and Lions. I am going to give you players that all wore the same number. I'm going to give you the players, and you're going to have to guess the number. You ready to go?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. I'll read all of the players, and I'll ask for the number, okay?
Okay.
Terrible Ted Lindsay. Harvey Kuhn. Rocky Colavito. Ivan Pudge Rodriguez. And Earl Dutch Clark. What number did all of those players wear?
Well, this one's easy because I have a Pudge Rodriguez jersey. It's number 7.
Correct.
A Tigers Pudge jersey.
All right, 1 for 1. Next list of players. Who wore it best? Schoolboy Rowe. Placido Polanco. David Price. Austin Jackson. Bob Gagliano. Earl Morrill. Christian Stewart.
That's 24, isn't it?
It is not 24. That would have been Miguel Cabrera would have been on that list.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You can't have Christian Stewart wearing 24 if Miggy's wearing it. Was it 31?
It is not 31. The correct answer is 14.
Oh, 14. I knew there
Bryce,
was a 4.
Polanco, Christian Stewart. If they play a 50-game season, Christian Stewart will hit 14 home runs.
Not even in the video game.
All right, you ready for another one? You're 1 for 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Yale Larry. Reed Larson. Brian Rafalski. James Hunter. J.D. Martinez. You made your career on J.D. Martinez. Well, I don't want to say you made your career. A big part of your career was on paying J.D. Martinez. So I know that he's your guy.
Yeah, I'm just so bad when it comes to numbers and remembering. Oh, J.D.
Keith on the live chat's trying to help you out. Don't look down there.
I'm looking at the live chat. Was it...
the live chat's wrong, by the way.
Okay. No, 35 was Verlander. J.D. Martinez. I know it was 2 digits, but that doesn't help at all.
Well, you eliminate 9 numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll go with. It's wrong. 31.
No.
What?
28. 2 more. You're 1 for 3.
I got to get the next 2 right.
Henrik Zetterberg. Bill Lane Beer. Phil Koch.
40.
Correct. 2 for 4. And the last one. Who wore? These guys all wore the same number. Brett Perryman. Cloyce Fox. Big Joe Fourier. Charles Rodgers. Danny Amendola.
I think it's 80. That's going to be my final answer, 80.
Correct. You are correct.
So I just barely got 3 out of 5 right.
Yeah, you did it. 3 out of 5
I can
is
eat the W.
acceptable. You can eat the W. Go ahead.
There we go.
Don't eat on the air. It's one of the rules. It's always a bad idea. And
This is our show. We can do whatever we want.
It just doesn't sound good. Might look good. It's funny to say eat a W. It just doesn't sound good.
Okay. We got some more feedback?
We do. Let's go through it here. Keith is wanting this to be on the radio. He wants the show to be even longer. He says hopefully one time we'll have even more interaction with us. Keep sending that feedback in. Keith, we'll read it.
And send us a video. You can do that on either Twitter or Facebook.
There you go, chap. Keith, send that video.
Yeah. For those of you that are new to the show, one thing you can do to interact is as long as you get it in a half hour before the show starts, so by at least 8 o'clock, you can respond to one of Dennis's videos, or you can respond, and that's either on Facebook or Twitter, with a video of your own about 30 seconds, and you can respond to any one of the topics that Dennis puts out there. Today, he put out a video previewing that we'd be talking about Matt Stafford and about the baseball negotiations. So you put together, we don't accept phone calls on this, but if you put together a video of yourself, just use your phone and respond to the post, 30 seconds approximately or less, then we could play that just like we played the Dwight Howard video.
That's right. Let's get to some more here. This one says Warren Moon would have been the greatest NFL quarterback had they not blackballed him and forced him to go to the Canadian Football League when he left the University of Washington.
Yeah, I don't remember a whole lot about Warren Moon's career. I know he started. I know he played for many years with the Minnesota Vikings, but I was pretty young when I was playing.
Well, Warren Moon, since I'm a little bit older, here we go. I can tell you, a great pure passer. He was already one of the greatest, even with coming in. But he played for the Oilers, man, and he was awesome. The Seahawks, too. And he's just a great pocket passer. And would have put up even more impressive numbers. But, you're right. I mean, the time that he was, teams not taking a chance on him where, here he is, this great passer. So, I think there's a point to that. A lot of feedback coming in on our Stafford chapter with a guy from CBS Sports,
of course,
ranking him as the 7th quarterback. Lawrence says, bottom line, guys, Stafford will never be respected as a top-tier quarterback until they have a solid D who can help him win games.
Well, he'll be respected as a top 10 quarterback when he plays like a top 10 quarterback all the time. Not just in the first half, not just in the second half, not just in the fourth quarter, not just for part of the season, not just for the other part of the season. When he starts performing at a top 10 level on a regular basis. When we can eliminate the discussion as to whether or not he's a top 10 quarterback as opposed to, well, I think he's 8th, I think he's 13th, I think he's 10th, I think he's 11th. When he's consistently in the top 10, like Drew Brees, like Aaron Rodgers, because that dope Magoo or whatever knows nothing about what he's talking about when he says that Aaron Rodgers isn't top 10, then all right, we can call him legitimately a top 10 quarterback. It's not all about his defense.
A lot of people talking about Tua and asking us what our opinion on Tua was. Here's somebody, Greg, who wants the Lions already to get in line and choke for Trevor Lawrence. And one more saying that it's Keith. He watched the Lions for 40 years. They took a fullback, James Jones, over Dan Marino. But, hey, we had the James game backfield. Yeah, a lot of teams passed on Dan Marino. But, yeah, Lions were one of them. As far as my thoughts on Tua, I thought all along that the Lions, I'm a Tua truther. I wanted him all along. If the Lions were going to be able to check him out medically and see him run a 40 at his pro day, and I was with him, take Tua. And then in the end, I think he got the advice, like, let's just put out a hype video. The worst thing that could happen, you're not going to fall out of the top 10. Maybe the Lions would take you, but maybe the Redskins.
Well, and then his parents came out and said, we ain't going to Detroit. We're from Hawaii. We're going to be in Miami. We're not going to Detroit where it's cold and you lose.
Yeah, and then they boxed themselves in. Martha Ford put out the letter, how much, well, I guess she didn't say she loved Stafford. That was a different time. But the letter to the season ticket holders indicated that it was that this staff needed to be in playoff contention, which automatically puts them on the hot seat, which you start thinking about, wow, are they really going to draft for the future? No, they're not going to do that. And even if that isn't the case, other teams think that. Then they went out and made the second mistake in signing Chase Daniels when they did. They didn't need to do that at all. The other thing they did is they should have told Matt Stafford as soon as they ended up with the 3rd overall pick. Bob Quinn should have called him up and said, look, Matt, we love you. You're going to be our quarterback next year, but we're going to make every indication that we're taking Tua. We're going to tell everybody we love him. We're going to talk about maybe there's some questions with your back. We're looking towards the future. Martha Ford maybe even wanted to come out, slip a statement out there, send something, to Kyle Meineke or one of the, the other beat writers or something. But the Lions didn't do anything like that. They signed Chase Daniels. They told everybody how much they love Stafford. So when teams were sitting there at number 3 and the Lions were like, yeah, man, we're open for business, they all laughed at him. So, they did a good job in the draft, but they did not do a good job creating leverage with the 3rd overall pick. I think we can all agree with that. It would have been nice to
create more leverage, but the key was that they did not take Tua Tagovailoa. That was the key because he dislocated and fractured his hip. Google Dennis Pitta if you want out there and see what happened to him. He also didn't just dislocate, but also fractured his hip. And in the next 3 years, he injured his hip 2 more times, and he was out of the league. For 4 years after his first hip injury, he was done. What you don't want to do, and when he came back, he was a Pro Bowler, but what you don't want to do is draft Tua Tagovailoa, have him lead you to a Pro Bowl, have him lead you to a 10-win season, but in the year 2025, he retires. I don't think that he's going to be playing in the NFL in his 30s at all.
We'll see. All right, chap. Coming up on Thursday, a CBS sports writer has put Jim Harbaugh behind Nick Saban, but in front of Dabo Swinney as one of the 3 greatest coaches in college football. We'll discuss it. No, I'm just kidding. We don't have that one. We'll have to wait. But you know what? Just wait. Some CBS sports writer will write something crazy, and we'll talk about it coming up on Thursday.
Also, I was supposed to do this last week, but we got so distracted with Facebook Live joining the 5th chapter. I am going to bring my surprise to you, the listeners, on Thursday the 18th, so stay tuned for that.
Do it. See ya.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the 5th chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune